It was supposed to be a calm, routine interview, but within minutes, millions of viewers were glued to their screens, hearts pounding, jaws dropped. The air crackled with tension. On live national television, Mayor Karen Bass and talk show firebrand Greg Gutfeld sat across from each other, but what began as a discussion about politics soon spiraled into a storm that no one saw coming. The lights dimmed, the audience hushed, and Greg leaned forward with that sharp, knowing smirk he was famous for. "Greater than, Mayor Bass," he began, voice cutting through the silence. "Los Angeles may look polished on the outside, but what about the past you've tried so hard to keep hidden?" The room froze. Karen's face stiffened. The camera zoomed in. The tension was electric. Greg pulled out a folder, its edge glinting under the studio lights. Inside were old documents, newspaper clippings, and a photograph that would shake the internet before the night was over. Karen blinked rapidly, trying to hold her composure, but her voice quivered as she spoke. "Greater than, Greg, you have no right. No right to tell the truth," he interrupted, "or no right to remind people where you came from." Gasps rippled through the audience. The control room buzzed with chaos as producers whispered frantically into headsets, "Keep rolling. Don't cut." And just like that, history was being written, live, raw, and unfiltered. The past that wouldn't stay buried. Before she was the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass had a different life, a life filled with pain, rebellion, and choices that haunted her. She'd grown up in South LA, surrounded by chaos. At 17, she'd fallen into a crowd that believed in revolution, in rebellion against the system, and she'd made decisions she regretted every single day since. But she'd rebuilt herself. She became a nurse, a community leader, and eventually, the city's mayor, a symbol of transformation and resilience. She thought her past was behind here. Greg Gutfeld wasn't interested in gossip. He was after truth. Raw, uncomfortable truth. He turned to the screen behind him, where an old image flickered into view. Karen, years ago, at a protest, standing beside faces the world now recognized for their radical ideologies. The audience murmured. Karen's hands trembled. "Greater than, that's not who I am anymore," she said, voice cracking. "People change, Greg. I changed." But Greg didn't back down. "Greater than, then tell us why you hid it. Why you never spoke about it until you were caught." The crowd went silent again. You could almost hear hearts racing. For a moment, Karen sat still, her eyes glistening, her lips pressed together. Then something in her snapped. "Greater than, you think you can define me by my past?" she shouted, slamming her hand on the table. "Do you have any idea what it's like to climb out of that darkness, to rebuild your name, your purpose, your faith, while people like you wait for one mistake to destroy everything?" The audience gasped. Greg didn't move. He'd expected anger, but not this raw emotion. "Greater than, I made mistakes, yes," she continued, voice shaking but powerful. "But I spent years helping people who made worse ones. I opened shelters, reformed prisons, fought for kids who had no voice. You think you're exposing me? No, Greg, you're exposing what it means to be human." Tears welled in her eyes. The studio was utterly silent. Even Greg, known for his sarcasm and quick wit, seemed momentarily lost for words. The moment that changed everything. And then, something unexpected happened. Greg slowly leaned back, exhaled, and for once, dropped the smirk. "Greater than, you know," he said quietly, "that was powerful." Karen blinked, unsure if it was sarcasm. But it wasn't. "Greater than, maybe," Greg continued, "the truth isn't about exposing someone's past, maybe it's about understanding how far they've come from it." That one sentence shifted the entire mood. The audience, silent for so long, erupted in applause. Not because they agreed with either one, but because they'd just witnessed something real. Something raw and unfiltered in a world full of polished lies. When the cameras went off, Karen Bass didn't storm out. She sat quietly, gathering her thoughts. Greg approached her off stage, his voice softer than before. "Greater than, you handled that better than most politicians ever could," he admitted. Karen smiled faintly. "Greater than, you didn't have to ambush me," she said. "You didn't have to turn it into a confession," he replied. They shared a strange, mutual respect, two people who'd faced off in front of millions, yet walked away changed. By morning, clips of the confrontation had flooded social media. Karen Bass destroys Greg Gutfeld with pure honesty. Greg Gutfeld exposes Karen Bass, but ends up respecting her. The internet couldn't decide who won, but one thing was clear: people couldn't stop watching. Karen's emotional speech became a symbol, not of scandal, but of strength. Her approval ratings rose. Viewers from across political lines praised her courage to face her past head-on. And Greg's show, it broke every previous record. Because in a world craving authenticity, that night had given people something rare: truth mixed with redemption. The message: this story wasn't just about confrontation. It was about courage, about the power of owning your past instead of hiding from it. Because sometimes, the moment you're exposed, is the very moment you finally become free. So if this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or reflect, then hit that like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines, because sometimes, what looks like a scandal becomes a lesson in humanity.